Hello, everybody. Today I have with me Molly Smith. Molly is a certified health coach from North Texas. Her moniker is, which I love, Molly Positive Pants. And she says that was born out of grit and positivity. And I like that combo. After a life changing decision to home in on her health, she found her calling. The profound benefits that she was making on her own wellness journey were something that she knew others could experience and make massive positive impacts in their own lives. She's helped many people achieve health transformations, often resulting in weight loss. But she is all about celebrating the NSVs, the non scale victories, because it's about the person, not the number on the scale. And the scale can only measure one thing, right? A person is comprised of immeasurable characteristics that can all be improved with Molly's influence. She reminds us that wellness is an ongoing process and that changing your habits and shifting your mindset is what takes the time. And sometimes you can't do it alone. And that's why she is there for people looking to transform through personal wellness. So this is Molly. Yeah. So Molly, I want to ask you first off, right off the bat, what was the catalyst for that decision for you to change your
Oh
health?
my oh my goodness. Yeah. So 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, I just got to the end of myself where the pain of staying the same was greater than the pain of change. And I think we have those moments throughout our lives. But in this particular time in early 2019, I was working 65, 70 hours a week in a corporate job. I was giving everything to building my career because that is where my worth and my identity was rooted. I don't know if you can identify with that, but I
Oh,
just got
yeah.
to the point where I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I reached out to a friend who had had success on our program and said, look, I'm busy. I don't have time to food prep, but I have to get my health back in order, particularly my weight. That was the initial reason why I got started. And she said, I gotcha, no problem. So I got started on this program. And within like 4 days, I was feeling amazing. I could tell something was different and just got some momentum in seeing some early results. So that was really the catalyst.
I love it. You have such a vivacious personality. So I can see you're the type of person who probably goes all in on things.
Yes.
So, yeah, I can hear like going all in at work and then suddenly realizing, and that's kind of the way it happens sometimes, right? You just look in the mirror and you're like, okay, I've got to change something.
That's right.
So let's go back a little bit to find out how you became this person that you are now, this vivacious, hardworking, really committed, positive person. There's a lot that goes into that. And I know it's rooted in the story. So tell us about where you were born and a little bit about what happened early in your life.
Yeah. So I was born in Appleton, Wisconsin. I did not spend a whole lot of time in Wisconsin in my early years. We moved to North Texas when I was 3, but my whole family is from Wisconsin. We've got deep roots in the state. We're huge Packer fans, but my whole family was there. My parents met in college there and moved down to North Texas in the late 70s for work and had a very, what you would think, very kind of typical childhood. There, I have an older sister who's about 3.5 years older. And it was like 2 kids, a dog, living in suburbia. We had a really tight knit group of friends in our neighborhood with the parents were contemporaries, the kids were the same age. So there was a lot of connection in our community, which was fantastic. My parents were avid golfers. My sister and I were in golf lessons by the time we were 6 or 7 years old. We spent weekends out in our lake house in East Texas. What I would say typical childhood until the late 80s when my parents divorced. And that was at a really formative time in my life because I was about 13 when that happened. That's when the world shifted for our family.
Yeah. I can relate to that, I think, from the other side because I did that to my kids. And
Okay.
I don't like to use the words I did that to them, but when I hear people talk about what a shift that was for them, I understand the magnitude of it. And I know that it had to be, but it's really interesting to talk to somebody from the other side. So I want to dig into that. But when you look back before that time, where that border between early life and the rest of the childhood. Do you have a particular memory of that time that then you can contrast? Is there something from the early life? Which one of the first things you can remember is something really good or a significant memory?
We have a tradition in our family that actually we still do today, but earliest memories, we used every holiday season, we would make homemade gingerbread houses. And it is something that we've done for going on 40 years. But I remember having my mom and her friends sit around the table. We had loads of candy and making gingerbread houses from scratch. And it was a thread through my childhood and then into my adult years and then in with my children, even now, that is just a very positive memory, tradition that we have. Also, in the early years, we took a lot of family vacations, and my mom had always made us dress alike. So we were all wearing like the same types of shirts and shorts or whatever. We were always coordinating. And that's just a funny memory that comes up. That's through that period. We always, every time we went on family vacation, we were always coordinated when we traveled.
That's beautiful. And I do think that provides the contrast because you had this cohesive family unit.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you didn't dress alike
No.
after that
Oh, no.
time. Do you remember the shift in your mind when that was going on?
Looking back at it, I was just rolling with it. When my parents divorced me to sell my childhood home. The only home that I remember. Fortunately, we didn't move very far away. We moved one street over and half a block down. We were still in the same community, which was a good thing because that's all I knew. But at that time, my mom was in a direct sales business and she had to go back into the banking industry to get full-time work so that she could support my sister. And my dad at the time was starting his own business. So my mom was coming out of her first step in entrepreneurship, and my dad was stepping into it at that time. So money was scarce. I look back as a 47-year-old woman today, and I look back at what my mom was likely going through in those moments. And I have such an appreciation because she's just trying to get by, right? Trying to provide for her family and figure out this life that she thought she was going to have and how it shifted.
Yeah. The financial strain, the change in everything. I know that's really tough. At that time, you were also going through school. What kind of student were you? Did you see any effects?
So I was an average student at that time. I was in public schools in our city and schools were fine, but I was not knocked it out of the park academically. I wasn't always struggling academically. That would change in high school. I had one very close friend who I stuck to, who I grew up with and met when I was 4. So going on 9 years of friendship when all of this is happening in my family, she was a really person that I leaned on. Her home a couple of blocks away was an escape for me.
It's good to have that. If I'm wondering if this is the time in your life when you developed the propensity toward positivity, when you learned how to shift your perspective on it.
Not even close.
Ah,
That wouldn't come until much, much later. But I
interesting.
will say that time, everything was changing. And so that was the biggest shift in my life to that point. And trying to roll with it, do what I was supposed to be doing, going to school, getting good grades, staying involved. It wasn't long after that that I got my first job. And that's when things really started kicking into gear in terms of my ambition, finding my worth in what I do.
Was that in your teenage years?
The minute I was old enough to work.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's how it was at that time too. I was the same way. So as soon as you get your working papers, you went out and you got a job.
It's what everybody did.
It's what everybody did.
Yep.
That's right. What about high school? How was that for you?
High school was a catalyst moment
Okay.
for me as well. I was in public school until the 8th grade, and then several families in our neighborhood sent their daughters to an all girls parochial school. in Dallas. And my sister was in school there. She had graduated, and we're 4 school years apart. And so I was a freshman at this all girls Catholic school in Dallas. Not only was my family of origin, the experience that I known, that had completely shifted. I uprooted and went to private all girls high school. And that was a challenge. It was a challenge for me socially. I had zero social capital because lots of the other girls in my class had known each other since they were in kindergarten. So they had established friendships, and I was the kid who lived far away. I was the kid who didn't know anybody. And the academic rigor of this particular school was significantly more difficult than what I was used to. So off of the bat, I was like 4 steps on the back foot. I was the poor kid in a very wealthy school. That created a lot of, now I can call that a little bit of imposter syndrome, lack of confidence, and just trying to figure out how to fit in.
Do you have a story about that? Like a particular thing that might have happened that illustrated the difference between your socioeconomic status and some of the other kids?
Yeah, so it was interesting. So at this school, we wore uniforms. At the time, the thing that distinguished you wasn't what you wore, although it was what kind of car you drove, what kind of shoes you wore, what kind of purse you carried. There were those things that were indicators of people who came from wealth, who came from intact families, that those little status symbols, if you will, that I did not have.
And we still have those
We do.
as adults.
We do.
That must have been hard. Did you have any mean girl or bully scenarios in that school?
I don't, no bullying, but I felt very disregarded, very unseen. Again, looking back on it, I think that everybody just had friends
Mm.
that they had grown up with. Making new friends and establishing new relationships wasn't a priority well, it didn't feel like that way being on the back end, being the person on the outside looking in.
Yeah. And did that persist throughout your high school? That
It
feeling?
did. It did.
But you were focusing on this job and work, and you
Yes,
said that's the origin of your ambition. So can you talk about that a little bit?
absolutely. I got a job at the local grocery store in my community. I did well. I received a lot of praise for my work. I helped open the store. It was a brand new store in our community. Everybody associated me with that store.
Oh,
And I grew as a teenager. I grew into a management role and had the respect of the leadership in the store. Actually, even when I was checker of the year for the district for which is such a fun, it's such a fun award for
I
the
love that.
district. It's
Checker of the
out
year.
for district A.
You have
And
your
I
picture
actually
on the
won it.
management stand.
Yeah, right? I actually ended up winning a 3-day trip to New Orleans as my prize. And I took my very best friend, Reagan. At 18, we took a 3-day trip to New Orleans by ourselves. Now, having a 19-year-old son now, there's no way on earth I would let him, at 18, if he was still in my house, like go to New Orleans for 3 days of drinking and shenanigans. Like I wouldn't, it's a wonder that my mom agreed to let us do that.
Right.
But at a time in my life where I wasn't getting a lot of validation for who I was, when I stepped into that work environment and got that validation, that really planted, I can look back on that now, a seed of you work hard, you get recognized. You work hard, you get validated.
Mhm.
You show up and you do your best, and that is going to lead to you feeling good about yourself.
Yeah, it reinforces a lot of those sort of praise related feelings that you get. But sometimes those don't translate to real internal love and worth, self appreciation. So, what do you think about that idea?
Well,
Like for you?
That's something I'm actually unwinding right now, doing a lot of work in therapy, EMDR, all of those things to really unwind that our worth is not tied to what we do.
Right.
Our worth is tied to who we are
Right.
inherently. And this is work that I've been doing in the last 12 to 18 months.
Okay.
So unwinding 30 years in the workforce of consistently reinforcing that belief has been an interesting journey in and of itself.
It is really interesting because you hooked into that so young, and that's what we do. I think that's a very interesting societal thing because
Yeah.
it's done on purpose. It's almost conspiratorial to keep people good workers, to keep people in the workplace striving and achieving in a certain way.
That's right. Yeah.
When you really try to go beyond that and go a level deeper and think about how you are as a person, you could probably even achieve more if you were to hook into that instead of those surface level rewards.
No question. No question. That's really something because of the one of the roles that I'm in right now in corporate America. I'm still working in corporate. I've had to really look at why do I need external validation? Why do I look for external validation versus really staying true to who I am and recognizing how I was made and what purpose I have and how what nobody thinks matters to how I show up every single day to do the
Right.
work I was called to do.
Right. I was thinking about this idea of working at a job, a corporate type of job, or any job, really. There are people who say, well, I hate my job, or I'm just working at this to make the money. But really, there is something that originally caused you to want to do that job. And that even if you're working in the grocery store or you're working at some other, in an insurance company or something, what you're doing is important to society and to other people. And there's a lot of self reward in that, that you can tap into the internal self awards no matter what you're doing.
I think any day that you get up and you do fulfilling work or you do your best, even in a
Mhm.
job that you don't like, there is something that you can take from that that underscores who you are.
Right. And that's why anything can be fulfilling. Digging a hole can be fulfilling.
Yes, you can.
This is why the inner work is so important.
Yes.
So, after your high school experience and then you got hooked into the idea of achievement, where did you go to school? What happened next?
I went to a small university in Denver, Colorado. I moved from Texas to Denver, Regis University. And going to Regis was the first time I can recall making an active decision to have a different experience. I felt in high school, I was a nobody, struggled mightily to get the grades that I got, and they weren't like fantastic. But in college, I saw it as a fresh start to nobody knows me, nobody knows anybody, right?
Right.
Everybody's coming to the same starting line. And I made a conscious decision. I'm going to do all the things that I want to do. I'm going to show up and be somebody.
Mm.
I got to tell you, those were amazing 4 years for me. Amazing 4 years.
It's like a time of freedom, isn't it?
Yes. And discovery,
Hmm.
right? Freedom, time freedom, choice freedom, all of those
Yeah.
things. But I started seeking out getting involved in the areas that I wanted to get involved in, or making friends, being more social than I probably ever had because it was my opportunity to start to live into who I was,
Hmm.
who I wanted to be. It was just a really rich time in my life.
If there was one word that you could give me just off the top of your head to describe high school, and then one word to describe college, what would those two words be?
For high school, challenge. For college, empowering.
I love it.
Yeah.
I taught college for over 25 years,
Oh, yeah.
and I wish that all of the people coming into their college years had that realization that it's a time of reinvention. It's a time where you can say, this is who I'm going to be. I can reestablish my identity here. I think a lot of people strive for that. I think they yearn for that, but they don't necessarily have the tools to take control of it. So it's really interesting that you did have those tools. What kind of things did you have to access or call up in yourself to do that?
I had to get out of my comfort zone to go and meet people, join clubs. I had a job on campus. I mean, I always worked, and that was always part of my experience in college, and put myself out there. I didn't in high school have the courage. In high school, just felt like I was unseen, really. And
Hmm.
and in college, it was like, I'm gonna be seen.
Hmm.
I'm gonna pursue the things that I want to pursue.
I'm going to be the person I always wanted to be.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of teenagers are feeling like that. And the word that comes to my mind is stuck or trapped
Yes.
because you're in a certain group of people and you don't understand that because of your maturity level, you actually do have the power to reinvent yourself then, but you can't do it because it's something that's so hard to access at that age.
Right.
And it's actually available to us any time of our lives, anytime.
Yes. Agreed.
So you went to school and were you in a business program?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
Studied business and was very involved in student government and residence life. I was an RA, the dorms, and worked in the admissions office all 4 years I was there, and developed lifelong friendships across the board in all areas.
So stepping into leadership in the system, but also stepping into leadership in your life by taking control, making friends,
Yes.
establishing good relationships.
Yes. Absolutely. I had multiple roles inside student government there. My junior year, I ran an all female ticket. So it was president, vice president, and chief justice, the top three positions in the student government. And ran for vice president and won. That was the first time I really put myself out there, right? We're talking full on campaigning, signs, button stickers, you name it. I did it. That was the first time I really put myself out there and achieved what I set out to achieve. And that felt amazing. Felt amazing.
There is a lot of fulfillment in that
Yes.
because
Yeah.
when you're doing that, you're campaigning, you're going out there saying, here's what I stand for.
Right.
And people are going to resonate with that or not. And they
That's right.
did.
That's right.
That is an amazing feeling. So in your 20s, what was that whole period characterized by then?
I met my husband, my now husband, my senior year over my Christmas break. And I knew by the third date that he was it. I don't think he knew that. Didn't really give him a whole lot of choice. So to me, type A, he is the type B, right? He's the very quiet, strong, but very silent type.
Mhm.
And so we dated long distance the last semester of my senior year and got engaged 6 months after we started dating and ended up working together. Before I graduated, I had a job in technology. I've been in technology my entire career. We ended up working at the same company, which was a lot of fun. So I was married at 23. I was very young when Jeff and I got married, but I had a vision for what I wanted in my life. And part of that vision was, at least before, it was aligned to what I had experienced before my parents divorced.
Mhm.
It's what I knew.
Mhm.
So we're going to do this. I had it all mapped out, which backfired.
I was gonna say, did that go to plan?
Not
All right,
even close.
keep going. What happened?
Not even close. Well, we were 1 year married, and I had so many expectations in my head, but did not have the ability to communicate those
Mm.
expectations. So the first year was a series of having an expectation and having him not be able to meet it. Poor guy had no idea. So we were really at a crossroads right around the first year of our marriage. We were ready to part ways. But you know what? I think God intervened in such an incredible way and changed my heart and my perspective. We obviously decided to continue. We'll be married 24 years this year and start to build a life together. So, had babies in my 20s. 2. I've got Grayson was born in 2004 and Graham in late 2006. So 2 boys I have.
Beautiful. So you were probably trying to rebuild what you had had as a child and
Yes.
hoped to make that permanent.
Yes.
What kind of traditions are you carrying through from your childhood into your family?
Oh my goodness. Well, the gingerbread tradition is still every year between probably mid-November, but we've been doing that 41 years. My boys have been doing it for probably 9, 10 years already. They are works of art. We make our gingerbread from scratch. It's an interesting process. I've taught classes on it and people have wanted to know how to do it. So provide lots of tips and tricks to friends who want to do the same with their families, but it's something that we've always done. A lot of times I'll make more than one house and I'll give one away to bless somebody else's life. But that tradition we have carried around the holidays. We have lots of traditions that are still very deeply rooted. Just when my parents divorced, a lot of those traditions shifted. And so when new ones were established, we even all these years, we've held on to them. We do a lot of game nights and movie
Mm,
nights. And that is something that comes from my childhood
mm.
as well.
The importance of family really can't be
Oh,
underestimated. And even though it goes through a shift, you can still preserve those things. I do that with my family, with my children, and my ex husband as well. That was our main goal when we got divorced, actually, to try to keep everything as much as the same as
right,
possible.
right.
And we did a pretty good job of that. So I think as you're moving and getting older, you do look back at those positive things and those traditions that were established. It's so important. There's a lot of people who don't have those.
I know. My husband doesn't come from a family with very deep traditions. Thankfully, so we brought his family into a lot of our family tradition as one big extended family, and that has been great over the years as well.
So you've been in the tech world, in
Mhm.
entrepreneurship or in the corporate world, and then you've done your entrepreneurship on the
Yes.
side, your own work. What age were you when you had that catalyst, that original shift that we talked about your health?
Yeah, so that wasn't long ago, that was 2019. A couple of months into my health journey, I was having some very good results. People started asking me, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You've got more energy, you're slimming down," all of these things. Just like when you come across a book, a recipe, a store, a restaurant that you love and you share it. That's exactly what I did. I wasn't out. I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I always saw myself reaching the highest of heights in corporate, always.
Mm, mhm,
That was the paradigm from which I grew. My parents were in business. My dad owned his own business, but even at that time, I didn't recognize that as entrepreneurship,
mm,
quite frankly, but they've been in business, finance, business, investing, banking, and so forth. In call it May of 2019, somebody said, "Okay, what are you doing? I need to do it." I stumbled into coaching.
mm,
I coached the program that helped me get healthy. That talk about one of the biggest catalyst moments in my life, getting healthy and deciding, hey, my health is important enough to focus on and to create space for was just the start of the trajectory shifting that happened with that particular moment. Because when I started helping somebody else, I got connected to the possibility
mm,
that there was something different out there for me. Why not me? Why couldn't I? Like I love connecting to people. I want to share what I've learned. And so coaching was actually a very natural fit looking back. It's like, oh, well, that makes sense. But it wasn't until I was in that coaching community and around people who were pursuing self development, personal
yeah.
growth, being aware. And I started connecting to people whose lives were, they had lived amazing lives. They loved the work that they did. They made phenomenal income, which enabled them to pursue things that they were passionate about. And I thought, what is with these people? Like their lives aren't perfect. They've got problems with kids and families and all these kinds of things. So they weren't painting an unrealistic picture. They were showing up boldly and with anticipation of fulfilling their purpose in a way that I just never had I'd never seen it. I thought, I need to be with these people more. Like they've got something that I want. It took several months for me to figure out what that was. And that was they had a vehicle for impact. They had discovered, and I was now a part of, I had my own vehicle to make an impact on
Mhm.
other people and how fulfilling that was in contrast to working 65 hours a week building somebody else's bottom line.
Yeah, and you spent your whole life up until what would you say, up until your 40s doing that?
Yes, correct.
This is the thing that strikes me. It's so amazing that by helping yourself, you automatically help others.
Yes.
And then it becomes intentional. Then when you shift it to intentionally helping others, the world just cracks wide open.
That's where it gets fun.
Mhm.
That's where it gets fun.
Mm.
I think the rooms that we put ourselves in are so important. We're in a similar room with our friend Craig on a regular basis. We all have different walks of life, but we are all in pursuit of doing and fulfilling the vision that we have for our lives. I've got a phenomenal mentor in my life, Tia Wood. She says, if you can see it behind your eyes, you can hold it in your hand, right?
Yes, you can.
And I believe that everybody has the ability to make an impact in the world,
Mhm.
no matter how big or small your influence is.
That's right. You just
And
have to believe. I think what's behind it is the belief.
yes,
So many people, I just had this conversation with another woman who is in our group about this. The idea that we think of our dreams as our dreams, like they're outside of us, they're not attainable. Like, oh, that's my dream. That's my dream house. I'll never have it, but it's my dream house. Or I'm going to put it on my vision board. But we don't think about actually living in the house. There's a little bit of danger about that, saying that this is my dream and putting that outside of you. Your dream is you,
yes.
inside you.
I will tell you in this period of time in my very early months of coaching, my dreamer was awakened,
Mm.
started dreaming again about what's possible for me to think and step outside what I thought my life was going to be. I thought my life was going to be climbing the corporate ladder. And this was a time, and who do I impact doing that? The owners of my company.
Right.
Right? But I started to believe, okay, what would it look like to impact others for health, to change their family trees, to create an income that would help me create that dream house? But it does start with the belief. And when you don't have the belief, stay connected to people who believe and borrow their belief until you've got it for
Mm,
yourself.
great idea. I
Oh
love
my
that.
goodness. I
Yeah.
say that to my coaching clients all the time. They don't
Yeah.
believe that they can change their health. And I'm like, that's okay. I'm going to give you one step at a time. You borrow my belief because I can see it behind my eyes that you're going to reverse type 2 diabetes, that you're going to get off your high blood pressure medication, that you're
Mhm.
going to be able to sit in an airplane seat without a seatbelt extender. I can see it. It's okay that you don't. Just run hip to hip with me. I'll help you. So staying tethered to somebody who's got that belief until you develop it for yourself.
Yeah, that's right. And that's different from being in a quote support group because those can
Yes.
turn into sort of gripe sessions.
Oh, absolutely. Or codependent.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. You have to be
Right.
careful about the complaining about it and really develop the empowering self talk.
That's right.
So, our personal growth individually really acts as like a butterfly effect out into the world, doesn't it?
I love that. Yes, it does.
So, your journey to this place, it gives me the chills because you are able to not just impact other people's lives, impacting your own life, but you are a catalyst now. So you had all these catalyst moments in your life that you talk about. And now you are the catalyst for other people to have those moments.
Gosh, I hope so. I I feel when I close my eyes and I think about the vision behind my eyes, I see impacting thousands. I do have a very quirky sense of humor, and I do believe that my personal moniker, Molly Positive Pants,
Mm,
was born out of something that actually comes from Tony Robbins, and that
mhm.
is that life happens for us, not to us. However crummy the situation is that you are in, we can step back. We have a choice to step back and look and say, okay, what am I learning? What positive thing can come from this terrible situation?
Right.
It's the ability to look and see, yeah, this is not a good scenario. We recently lost a friend of ours, and to look at that and say, God, a life has been lost, but what can we gain? What can we learn from that and take that forward? How can we use that circumstance to improve where we are, our mindset, or to reach out a hand and help somebody else? That's the root of Molly Positive Chance.
I love Molly
Yeah.
Positive Pants. And I have so many thoughts that are coming to mind along that line. There's a phrase that I hate. Okay. I'm just going to put myself out there. I think the phrase toxic positivity is bullshit. I
Okay.
think there is no bad positivity. I understand what they're saying with that. I understand where
Sure.
they're going with it, but
Sure.
I think it's bullshit. Don't start telling me positivity is toxic. What do you think about that?
So I think fake positivity, like being inauthentic, will diminishes the impact. I think that if you're truly authentic about your perspective or what you're putting out on social media or who you are connecting with, I think that you can always win. But when I think of toxic positivity, I think of inauthenticity.
Mhm,
Well,
mhm.
there's so much negativity in the world. There's so much negativity in our workplaces, in our Facebook feeds, in our Instagram feeds, on the news, and all of those things. And I got to tell you, quite frankly, I limit those channels into my life. Protecting my energy has become very important to me so that I can show up as my best self to do the work that I've been called to do.
Oh, absolutely. One of the major changes I've made in my own life as well is I don't watch TV at all. I don't even watch Netflix that often. Very rarely I'll put on a series. But
Yeah.
when you start to realize the influence of the media, the news media in particular, reading, watching, whatever you're doing, it's so negative. And if something big happens, you're going to find out. You're going to
Absolutely.
know and
Yeah.
check in on it every now and then, but don't let it affect your mindset because I don't think we realize how much it is affecting our people will say, "Oh, it doesn't affect me." But it does. It is affecting you. Yeah, I think too that when people talking about toxic positivity to me are also talking about the dangers of repressing, being so positive that you're at the expense of not being real. So I get that, but if you're not willing to take a look at the things in your story, the things in your life, you're not going to learn the lessons. And like you said, which leads me to another question, you said Tony Robbins and others talk about how your worst experiences, he says, make your worst day your best day, Tony Robbins. And I love that because that's how we learn. Your worst experiences are your greatest teachers. I can look at different people back in my life and think I could either be angry at that person, I could still be bitter, I could hold a grudge, or I could look at them as one of my greatest teachers. So for you, Molly Positive Pants, can you tell us about one of your moments where you encountered one of your greatest teachers?
Oh, goodness. Greatest teachers.
Like in a bad way.
Oh, and yeah. Coming from a bad experience,
Right.
I'd have to say it's somebody who I've worked with in the past where it shifted my working for this man was made me rethink everything about who I am because I didn't receive that external validation. I didn't feel like I was adding value. That situation, just a different type of leader, wonderful person, but one of the hardest relationships that I've worked with in my career. And what I've learned is that it's the hard way. I've learned the hard way
Yeah,
is
that's what
that
that is.
the validation of your worth and your identity and who you are cannot come from somebody else. I got sick and tired of feeling so poorly about myself that I had to stop and say, okay, why is it that I care so much? What is it about me? And that has taken me down this path of self awareness, of discovery, of healing wounds from the past, and really getting rooted in who I am inherently, not my
Hmm.
titles,
Hmm.
not the work that I've done or the work that I'm doing, but who I am. And so that has been the biggest
Mm.
teacher for me. And I'm so grateful for it. It's been a hard road to walk down and circumstances to walk through, but man, has it radically shaped and changed for the best positive way who I am.
So we have to look at situations like that. Was this sort of a situation where you were trying to please a person or
Oh, yeah.
yeah, okay. And then
Serial
then you
people
started
pleaser.
yeah, then you start hi, are we people pleasers? There's
Yes,
always something in the story that
there it is.
speaks to that for sure. And I loved that this person gave you the mirror to take a look at where that was coming from. I mean, we only grow from these experiences.
Right.
We only get better.
That's right. That is this circumstance has had me outside my comfort zone for years.
Okay.
And that's where growth happens,
That
right?
is
And if you're self-aware enough to realize that, okay, like I'm not running back to safety. There's something that I need. I'm here for a purpose,
mhm.
right? I've got my mission in life. I have the vision for what I'm trying to create in my life, but I've got an assignment right now. And that assignment has me here for a purpose.
Mhm.
So let's figure that out.
So if this person was not acting in your estimation as a good leader, what are the characteristics of a good leader?
Well, I think a great leader is somebody who knows their people. I've led teams for 20 years. Good leaders understand their team's goals, validate, and are quick to praise
Mm.
and also quick to provide feedback. I think that's so important. Great leaders understand that there's a whole person. You bring your whole person to work.
Yes, you do.
Everybody comes with all sorts of concepts and experiences that shape who they are when they are with you.
Because your identity is so complex. It's not just who you think you are. It's all the parts of you, and it's all the parts of you that other people perceive. It's really interesting. One of the things you mentioned was that you have gotten into the right rooms. What are some of the rooms that you've put yourself into? Did you do a Tony Robbins event? No. Okay.
I have not.
I've always been curious about those. I have not done one either, but the walking on fire thing.
Yes, right.
And that's certainly a room you could put yourself into if you
True.
wanted to improve for sure. But
True.
what are some of the specific places that you've put yourself into for people who may want to break free
Yes.
and get bigger? How do
Yes.
they do it? Where do they go?
Connecting to people who are doing what you want to do. I think that's so important. So, within my coaching community, which by far is one of the most amazing communities I've ever been a part of, every time I have the opportunity to be in a room with leaders in my company, I'm there because I know that I don't need to be, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. I'm in the wrong room. Building your network, connecting to people who are doing what you want to do. Listen, there's no competition here, right? There are plenty of people to impact. Everybody's story matters. And so getting into rooms of people who are doing similar work, like we do with our friend Craig Siegel,
That's
like
right.
I so encourage, we are very, very different, all different types of businesses and careers in that room, but I never walk away from a time with them where I am not encouraged, where my vibration isn't through the roof because I am seeing people step into vulnerability and share their breakthroughs, their challenges, and seeing how the support of those rooms makes a difference in how we show up. Building your network, number one, between my coaching community, our CLS community, I've also sought out quite a bit of personal development. I've worked with executive coaches in the past. I've worked with public speaking coaches, writing coaches, building the skills that will help you fulfill the vision that you have for your life.
I think hardworking people who are driven often think we have to do it all ourselves.
Everybody needs a coach. Everybody needs
Everybody
someone.
needs a coach. I've stepped into this and embraced it fully over the past year for the first time in my life. So I've always been in academia. And then I started on this journey of entrepreneurship and joined the CLS community. We'll give them a shout out, Colonel
Yes.
Siegel, because You do need to be in the rooms with people who are a level of excellence that you want to strive to be at. Like you got to be there in rooms with people who are building and creating. And I didn't realize, maybe you felt the same way, how small I was playing. I was trapped in social groups. I was trapped in my routine of the things I was doing and the people I was around. I was trapped in these little boxes and I did not know. I thought I was a worldly person before I started getting involved in these groups outside of myself. Because you have to find them. And because thank God we have the internet, this is where your world can explode. It's unbelievable what the people that you can meet and everything that can come into your life when you just open the door.
That's right. There have been multiple moments in my life where I was not dreaming or thinking big enough that just like you, I put myself in a box. But it is in getting into those rooms where our eyes are opened,
Yep,
having conversations and connecting with people to awaken what's possible. We've got to
that's
be
right.
doing that on a regular basis or we're going to stay stagnant.
It's so true, and it never ends. It's like quantum. It's
Yeah.
like once you open it and then you realize, "Oh my gosh, I was just in this little world. There's a much bigger world." And then again, you open it again. "Oh my gosh,
Yes.
there's another big
Happens
world outside of that."
over and over. That's right.
It's quantum. It never ends. It's really amazing. I love the idea of, like, building that up. You talked a little bit in one of your posts that you posted recently, something about your thoughts and the importance of your thoughts and how we can use our thoughts to control our life and our future. So, steelman that argument for using your thoughts to create the future you want for people who might be like, that doesn't work. That's woo.
Our thoughts are just things. What we think isn't necessarily the truth, right?
Mm,
And so, as somebody who has been plagued and goes down many a rabbit hole in terms of negative thoughts and what if scenarios and all of those types of things, I've had over the last couple of years to develop some skills that will help me flip the script on those negative thoughts because just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. And so just because I think that I'm not adding value here or there, or that I'm not a good mom or a good coach or a good wife, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not true. And so our brain don't know the difference between a truth and a lie when it is told something repetitively.
mm,
So we tell ourselves something over and over and over again. Those thoughts become beliefs, and those beliefs shape our action. And we can change those thoughts if we can get clear on what are we actually thinking. This is metacognition. I love this stuff.
absolutely. Oh, that's part of my program,
Geek out
metacognition.
on it. Love it.
It's
Yes.
part of my program.
Yeah, thinking about what we're thinking about. And
That's
so
right.
and I've started working with some employee resource groups and women's groups to share some of these concepts
Mhm.
about how do we flip the script on our negative thoughts. And
Yep.
so getting clear on what those thoughts are, jotting down that logical opposite. I deal with this one a lot with I work with my coaching clients on this. They say it's hard for me to lose weight. Well, the logical opposite, it's easy for me to lose weight. Every time you find yourself repeating that or thinking that or having that low level underneath the active thoughts that are just running as the mental tape in your head. I'm a child of the 80s, so it's a tape, not a
Yeah,
CD or
I'm with you.
okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And that mental tape that plays, dialing into that and saying, no, I'm going to think the opposite, even if the opposite isn't true. That logical opposite doesn't need to be true in order for you to rewire your brain.
Mhm.
I am so passionate about helping people flip that script and in that build their confidence and set themselves up to do what they're called to do.
Flipping the switch, you do have control over it.
Yes.
Yeah, there's so much to that. Our thoughts are powerful. I'm doing a lot of research on thoughts right now. I've been reading some very interesting books and information about how our intentions influence our lives and how we can use our intention, which is focused thought, to create what we want out of life
That's
and
right.
to do things that are miraculous. In fact, you can heal from chronic disease. You can do things like lose weight, obviously. You can do things like affect your health. You can improve your relationships with other people and open up a garden of possibility in that way.
Yes.
It's pretty amazing.
I believe, I don't know if you listen to Ed Milet. I never miss an Ed Milet. But a couple of weeks ago, he shared base your confidence on your intention. Set that positive intention, set that intention for what you want to do, and then operate from a level of confidence in that intention. I think that is so powerful.
Hmm. Hmm.
That is so powerful. Do I absolutely believe in the power of intention?
Yes. And confidence is another interesting thing.
Yes.
You have to do things that are going to support your ability to build your confidence and not bring it down. I know there have been times in my life where I've let outside influences permeate and you don't realize it's chipping away at your confidence until one day you do.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. One exercise that I take folks through when I'm working with them is to build what's called a confidence resume. So
Mm,
to go back and look in your life at all of these things that you've done and write them down. Matter of fact, it's right over that little frame over there. That's my confidence resume. Write down all of the things that you've achieved in your life, big or small, and they can be personal to you. Somebody else looking at it might not be able to make the connection. But when you are stepping into something that you're nervous about or have anxiety about, going back and looking at, here are the things that I've done.
yep.
I can do this.
Right. I've
I
done
never,
before. I can do it
yes,
again.
yes. I never thought that I could run a half marathon or to complete 2 triathlons ever in my life, but I didn't. I signed up without the skills, without the bike, without being able to swim, and I completed a triathlon. Okay.
That's crazy. You did a triathlon?
Two.
Two.
Yeah.
Oh, good for
Two.
you.
But listen, I'll tell you, when you start to develop that confidence muscle, and confidence is a muscle, you got to keep building it. You can't let it atrophy.
Right.
But when you do something you never thought you could do, you open up to the possibility that you can really do whatever you set out to do. And so building that confidence resume is a tangible reminder of all that you've accomplished so that when you are going to the next level and the box is opening up and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this was all here. I was playing so small. And you're stepping out of that box, dialing into that confidence resume is going to ground you and remind you of all that you've accomplished and that you can go do big, bold things.
Yeah. If you think it, you can do it. If it's a thought that comes into your head, there's a reason.
That's right. Intuition, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And trusting. Is there something that you used to believe that you've changed your mind about through this growth mindset process?
Yeah. This is a personal one. Because of my ambition, I spent so many years climbing the corporate ladder. I felt very inadequate as a mom. And that's false. God gave me these two amazing kids, now teenagers, both bigger than me, and made me who I am and made me the mom that I am. So let's not discount that. So one of my affirmations, one of my logical opposites, right? So one of those negative thoughts, I'm not a good mom. That logical opposite is I'm a great mom. And I can look back and say, look at all the ways that I've shown up for my kids. Now, I'm not perfect, don't get me wrong, but I've advocated for them. I would go down swinging for them. I've tried to equip them. I can look back and say, I've done these things and I haven't been perfect, but I've been intentional. I am a great mom.
You are a great mom. There's no one right way to be a mom.
That's right.
You know?
Also, something I had to break through in my 20s and early 30s.
I really believe that all of us, moms, dads, people, we are really all just doing the best we can given our circumstances at any given time.
That's exactly right. I have such appreciation for my parents being at this stage in life and looking back and saying they did
Yeah.
a good job.
Yeah, they do. There's over 50% of marriages that don't make it to the end or they make it to a certain point. And we still turn out okay.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
learn a lot. You gave us some really good tools. Like I love the confidence
Resume.
resume. I love the logical opposite. That is beautiful. Are there any other big tools that all people should know about?
Oh my goodness. Well, one that I've come across in the last, actually this year in the last 6 months, EFT tapping.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know EFT
I
tapping,
do.
emotional freedom technique? Absolutely game changer in my life over the last 6 months. I was originally introduced to it through Gabby Bernstein, but then stumbled across Nick Ortner. Nick and Jessica
Yes.
Ortner have the tapping solution. And I got to tell you, I tap at least once a day, if not multiple times a day. I'm very fascinated right now. This is something I'm noodling on. I'm very fascinated with the role of the nervous system
Mhm.
in dialing into emotions, finding emotional freedom, and releasing the hold that trauma has in our past. And EFT is just it's life changing. It's been life changing for me.
I love that. I've used it periodically. What you're saying about the nervous system, and especially I think when you're someone who gets to a certain point in your life when you're really in tune with yourself, you start to notice the nervous system as a more prominent force in your biology. And you might start to feel actual physical sensations related to your traumas as a child or your stress from various experiences, current and past.
Yes.
You really got me thinking. I'm thinking about getting back to that. That's a
Abs-
great thing. You also mentioned something I'm interested called EMDR. Can you talk about that a little bit?
yeah. So EMDR is a type of therapy that engages eye movement and it dials into your nervous system. So you go back to an experience, a trauma in your childhood where certain feelings of maybe not being enough, not being seen, whatever it is that you have in your past, you go back there and you process that in a very particular way, definitely in a therapeutic setting. It releases the hold of that memory on your life. So, a lot of the work that I've been doing as a result of really finding my worth outside of what I do had triggered a bunch of things from my childhood that I'm now processing with EMDR.
Yeah.
And I'm early in the process with EMDR.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, there's just something between 50, tapping, EMDR, breath work. I'm doing all of those things, and all of it is engaging the nervous system in a really profound way. And this is brand new discovery for me. So I'm just starting that journey. And I think that if you want to get to the next level, you want to level up, you want to make that vision behind your eyes come true,
Mhm.
that you've got to be able to do the work.
That's right. And
You've got
this is what I'm hearing from you with all of these things. For people who do not believe that we are a holistic being, we are a mind and a body connected and a spirit and a soul. We are. And when you're doing these things like the tapping on different points, where you tap on different points of your face, and the EMDR, the eye movements, there's lots of research about the neurological connection
yeah,
that happens in your nervous system and the different connections there with the eye movements.
yeah.
That there's physical things in your body, either touch points, things you can do with different movements or actions that connect to the inner self.
Yes.
Like it's all one,
Connected.
we're a system.
Yes.
We're trillions and trillions of cells that are all working together. Like if you put me under a microscope, I'm just a bunch of little cells moving.
That's right.
And we have to tap into that to be our best selves.
Yes. Because we all have things in our life that we need to process. We need
Oh,
to
yeah.
process as the best version of ourselves, the current version of ourselves.
Yes.
We need to process those, gain some understanding with it so that we can take our next best steps forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, that's another thing too that I will call bullshit on is that people are all like, live in the present moment, don't go in the past, forget about it, let it go. Well, yes,
Yes.
but
But
you're bringing it, when you look at it from the present moment, you've got to tussle with it. You got
that's
to
right.
tangle with it, or else you won't learn the lessons and it won't leave you alone. Like it's going to come back. And so I love those techniques. Those are great tools. So I have to ask you about what you think are the top lessons of your life. What are the biggest lessons that you've learned in this life?
I think first and foremost, don't let fear stop you from pursuing your dream. Don't let fear do it.
'Cause
because
it's
we
gonna be
all
there, right? Fear's gonna be there.
it's always gonna be there. You're not waiting for a time when you don't have fear or anxiety or don't know what the end looks like. I can't see the end, so I'm not gonna take my first step. Don't let that stop you. Just take the next best step. Take the next best step.
I love
Uh,
that. The next best step.
the next best step. Yes. Create healthy boundaries. It's okay to say no to something good, to pursue something great. And that's hard to do. That's hard for people who don't see the vision, don't get it, or struggle with those who are on a path of personal growth and self awareness. But it's important to protect your energy, protect your time, and stay so you can maintain your focus.
And
Your
you could
call to
say,
do.
"Is this taking me where I wanna go?"
Yes. Yes.
Mm,
The next big lesson is when you make a decision, that means to kill off. When you make a decision, you are deciding for something. And because you're deciding for something, you're also deciding against something. You say yes to something. The next thing that you do after you make a decision is to take an action step, one thing towards that goal. When I was encouraged by my coaching team to, hey, sign up for a half marathon, I couldn't run from here to there without stopping. I had 14 weeks, but I thought, why not? Why not me? I didn't think that I could lose 43 pounds. That's what I had lost at the time. Never thought that I could do that. And I did it. Why couldn't I say, okay, let me go run a half marathon? Let me figure that out. So in that moment, without any skills, without knowing how I was going to figure it out, I made a decision. And the next thing I did right then was register for that race. And then I'll take the next step and the next step and the next step.
mm, yeah, that's inspirational. What about your blessings? What are your biggest blessings in life?
Oh my goodness. My kids taught me so much. I have a son with high functioning autism, and he has taught me so much and helped me think bigger. That wasn't
Mm,
thinking big enough for him initially. And he is amazing. So, my kids, my husband, who is ridiculously supportive of all that I do, and I'm doing 90 things at a time. Supportive, definitely a blessing. The rooms that I'm in, the assignments that God's given me to show up, all blessings, even the hard ones, even the things that have been so hard, such blessings. I can
yeah,
see those things. Hashtag Molly Positive Pants can see those hard things as blessings, right? Always
absolutely.
an opportunity.
You can always find the blessing. You can always there's always a blessing in
There's
everything.
always a blessing. I always
And my final question to you is top word that comes right into your mind. What is the most important thing?
faith in
Beautiful.
ourselves, in a higher power, for sure.
Yeah, when you stop having faith, it's all over, isn't it?
It is.
Well, thank you so much, Molly, for
Thank
everything,
you.
for sharing your beautiful heart with us today and your positivity.
Thank you.
And we'll have all the information about how people can connect with you because we
Awesome.
really need this positive light in
Oh,
in
thank
our
you.
lives.
It was a
Everyone
pleasure to be
does.
here.